Greetings. I'm Amy Foster. I'm the senior pastor at Sterling First United Methodist Church, and I'm coming to you as part of the Salt and Light Network. And we're working together. Churches in Reno and Rice County are working together to bring some hope through devotions and personal thoughts during this corona crisis. This is tough. I mean, I'm not even going to lie. I'm sad, and I'm frustrated, and I'm overwhelmed. I miss my church family. My heart breaks for so many people that are isolated and that are ill, and we can't get to each other, and it just hurts my heart. And I know that I'm not the only one. Many of you are probably dealing with the same thing. I mean, we've been asked to let go of every concept of normalcy that we've known or had over the past few weeks. It's lonely, it's hard, and even sometimes it's a little boring. But things just don't seem right. Not being able to worship on Sundays with my church family, not able to see my extended family. Things aren't right. They seem out of sync. And it makes me wonder if things will ever be the same again. Now you're watching this, today is Good Friday. It's the end of Holy Week. And like many of you, I've been trying to find ways to remain mindful of that. And so I've been reading from the book, We Make the Road by Walking by Brian McLaren. And here's what he has written about what happened on this day so very long ago. And Brian takes his thoughts from Luke chapter 22, verses 39 through chapter 23, verses 50 through verses 56. And Brian asks us to imagine ourselves with the disciples just before 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. And a few people have come together to talk about what's happened over the last 24 hours. Here's what McLaren writes. He writes, "It all started falling apart late last night when Judas, accompanied by a band of soldiers, came for Jesus. All we could think about was saving ourselves. Only Peter and John had the courage to stay with Jesus for a while. But by the time dawn came, Peter was having an emotional breakdown, and John had run away too. The next thing we knew, about 9 this morning, Jesus was carrying his cross through the streets of Jerusalem. It was obvious that he'd been beaten. He'd been scourged mercilessly. He had been mocked, and he had been tortured. He was hardly recognizable. By noon, he was hanging on the cross. During the last 3 hours, some of us gathered at a distance to watch. We've been silent. We've been lost in our own thoughts. But no doubt, all our thoughts have been running the same circuit through the same shared memories. We've been remembering last evening in the garden before Judas showed up. We kept falling asleep as Jesus prayed, "My Father, if it's possible, take this cup of suffering away from me. However, not what I want, but what you want." With tears and in great distress, he prayed a second and a third time. But the thrust of his prayer shifted from what might be possible to what might not be possible. "Father, if it's not possible that this cup be taken away unless I drink it, then let it be what you want." In the second and third prayers, he was clearly preparing to die. As the hours drag on from noon to 3 o'clock, we imagine many reasons why this had to happen. Only the fool could do things like these without experiencing consequences. But Jesus was no fool. We think about at dinner last night when he knelt down and he washed the disciples' feet and later he called them friends. What was that supposed to mean? Was he trying to show those that God isn't a dictator high in the sky, eager for us to cower at his feet in fear? Was he inviting us to think of God as the one who is down here with us, who stoops low and touches our feet, as a servant would? Was he telling us that God would rather cleanse us than condemn us? If that was the case, then what and how could this horrible day, what could this horrible day be trying to show us? You see, 1 minute the crowds were flocking to Jesus, hoping for free bread and healing. The next minute they were shouting, "Crucify him!" And we, his so-called disciples, were no better. 1 minute we're eating a meal with him and he's calling us his friends, and now here we stand at a distance, unwilling to identify ourselves with him, and so risk what he is going through. It's grown strangely dark in the middle of the afternoon. In the darkness, even from the distance, we can hear Jesus say, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." Forgive them? Forgive us? What kind of people have we become? What kind of world have we made? I want to share with you this poem by Laura Kelly Fanucci. And she writes, "When this is over, may we never again take for granted a handshake with a stranger, full shelves at a store, conversations with our neighbors, a crowded theater, Friday night out, the taste of communion, a routine checkup, the school rush each morning, coffee with a friend, the stadium roaring each deep breath, a boring Tuesday, life itself. When this ends, may we find that we have become more like the people we wanted to be. We were called to be what we were hoped to be. And may we stay that way, better for each other because of the worse." You know, I guess it's okay. I guess it's okay to be in a dark place. And I guess it's okay to be in isolation. And I guess it's okay to not know what's happening tomorrow. It doesn't make it any easier, but it's okay. For it's in those dark places where transformation can begin. The tomb served as an incubator for hope. So on this Good Friday, may you be comforted and reminded for the good news that the love God has for all of his children. And that includes me and all of my self-centeredness. And it includes you as well. And God's love is bigger and brighter than any doom and gloom tomb that we may find ourselves in. And remember, the worst thing is not always the last thing. For weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes in the morning. May you feel God's presence today and in all the days to come. Amen.